My respects, my love. Take your seats. We can get underway. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. I'll just give everyone another 30 seconds to get located. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Once again, just a final request. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alex Benjamin. I'm the Vice Chairman here at the European Jewish Association. We're delighted to welcome you to our annual conference this year, Fighting Back for Our Future. Just a couple of minor announcements. For those of you who struggle with the English language, and mainly for our French guests, you have in front of you some headphones. If you tune into channel 1, you can have a simultaneous translation from English to French and vice versa. So for all our French delegates, bienvenue, and you have the translation on the headphones for you. We have a very busy agenda today, so we'd like to jump straight into it. It goes without saying, and you don't need me to tell you, but it's been a very tough year for all of us. To remind us of why we are here, we've prepared a short video for you.
This is the last time things were this bad. We said never again. But here we are, again.
Israel is a terrorist state! Victory to the Intifada!
Dozens of Jewish graves were desecrated in this cemetery in southern Belgium. Beatings and assaults have also been reported.
The facts don't lie, and these numbers are just the tip of the iceberg. Incredibly, the worst pogrom since World War II, October 7th, led to a huge increase in Jew hatred. They tried to say anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism were different. They are not. Others understood.
An old evil is resurfacing in Europe.
Child killers, poisoners, capitalists, communists, controllers, usurpers, colonialists. The oldest hatred doesn't die. It just adapts. It fits whatever is happening in the world. The war in Gaza means every Jew in Europe is a target for hate. Because we support the world's only Jewish state, we are denied the right to exist. They attack us. They insult us. They spit on us. Because we are Jews. Never again. Ladies and gentlemen, never again is now.
Thank you. I think we can all agree a very sobering video. Of course, things were bad even before October the 7th, but of course, on October the 7th, the situation simply exploded. Before going any further, I would ask us to rise and observe a moment's silence for our fallen soldiers, the innocents murdered on October the 7th, and of course, our hostages still currently held in Gaza. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to pull together a conference, especially under some circumstances. But I'm delighted to welcome to the stage the chairman of the European Jewish Association, Rabbi Menachem Margolin, to formally open this conference. Rabbi Margolin.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Consistoire of Paris and the President of EJA Council of Jewish Leaders, Dr. Joel Mergui, the President of the Umbrella Organization of Dutch Jewry, CIO, Sir Hanan Herzberger, dear partners, welcome to the conference. We meet in emergency mode. The situation affecting our communities is the worst it has been since the Second World War. We, all of you, all of us, we've been warning our governments about rising anti-Semitism, and the flood has arrived. Since October 7th, the biggest pogroms of Jews since the Second World War, anti-Semitism has gone viral. Viral, like a virus, it is harmful and it is uncontrolled. And it kills. It kills Jews, but it also kills societies. It kills democracy. But you know all of this already. You are living it. You might be hiding your Magen David necklace. You might be worried about the mezuzah on your doors. If you are visibly Jewish, you have most probably have been insulted on the street, or at least had one or some stranger shout at you, "Free Palestine." Today, we meet to fight back. This conference will be different. Instead of testimonies about the situation as it is, I ask each and every one of you to suggest solutions. So, to how it should be and what needs to change. We want to hear your ideas. We want to hear your vision. Because at the end of the conference, we would like to make sure that each Jewish leader can take the ideas back to his or her community and implement it. At the end of the conference, we will take these ideas and your vision, and we will give them to those in power. We will give them political solutions, we will give them legal solutions, and we will give them solutions in education. We will, with your approval, present them to every government across this continent. Because so far, and you all know it, so far, the government of Europe have done far too little for us. And we meet today to show them a way out of this mess. We will show them that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism today are the same. They tell us that criticism of the Israeli government and policies is entirely legitimate. And this is right. They are right. It is normal and it is healthy. But that is not what it is today. What is happening across Europe and here in the Netherlands is not normal and this is not healthy. Anti-Semitism is being normalized. My friends, about 5 years ago, I remember getting into a media argument with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He called back then on every Jew in Europe to come to Israel. And I pushed back. Because for millennium, Europe served as a home for millions of Jews. And whilst Israel is our homeland, while Israel is our security or life guarantee or insurance policy, we thought we shouldn't call it until it's absolutely necessary. I don't know what is your red lines, but mine is when governments tell us that we are responsible for our own lives, that we are on our own. We are not there yet, but in truth, I know many of you feel that we are not so far away from it. So my message today to Prime Minister Netanyahu is not as it used to be. Today I say, sadly, Prime Minister Netanyahu, we are not there yet, but be ready. Get your government agencies ready. Because if European government carry on as they have so far, if they continue to tolerate this flood of Jew hate, if they will continue to ignore our needs, they can expect many thousands of Jews to leave. So the government of Israel should be ready. They should be ready to make enough places for Jews in Europe to live. They should be ready to offer space to work. They should be able to provide education for all the kids. And Israeli society should also be ready for such a large aliyah. But we are not allowed. We are not allowed to stop fighting for the truth and for the right of the Jewish people who want to live in Europe to stay living in Europe safe. Europe can continue to be home for Jews only if the government in Europe wants us to stay, and only if they will help us to stay. Today we meet to give them tools to do so. I would like to thank each one of you for taking the time to be here with us today. And I pray for God's guidance in our important discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi Margolin. Of course, the annual conference is not possible without many of our esteemed partners, and I'm delighted to invite up a very important partner to us at the European Jewish Association, an organization that started out in Hungary but is doing some incredible work all over Europe in highlighting this phenomena of anti-Semitism, trying to track it, and above all, to look for the reasons behind it, measuring social attitudes, etc. It is my great pleasure now to invite Mr. Kalman Shalai, the president of the Action and Protection League, to come and join us on stage. Thank you, Kalman.
Dear rabbis, distinguished guests, dear friends. First of all, I would like to express my special thanks to Rabbi Margolin, the president of European Jewish Association and his team for creating the opportunity for us to come together and talk about the challenges that have faced the Jewish communities over the years and the present day. The American philosopher George Santayana once said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." It's been 8 months since the biggest terrorist attack in modern history, and the world seems to have forgotten all about it. There are so many victims and events that have been overlooked, such as Kibbutz Be'eri, the Nova Festival, Ariel, and so on, and all the other hostages. Not only has the world forgotten October 7, but it has also forgotten Auschwitz, Buchenwald, Bergen-Belsen, and so on. And history is repeating itself with the biggest wave of anti-Semitism since the Holocaust. What is more concerning is that the world seems to have forgotten the basic sense of right and wrong. In several European countries, Jewish communities and individuals are facing daily and immediate danger, with Jewish houses and shops being marked with the Star of David. There are also thousands of protesters publicly chanting, "Gas the Jews," and "From the river to the sea," calling for the genocide of Jews, while the Western intelligentsia remains silent. 12 years ago, Rabbi Shlomo Köves, the chief rabbi of Hungarian Jewish Association, established Action and Protection Foundation with the goal of documenting all anti-Semitic expression and taking action against them using legal and public means. We have been monitoring anti-Semitic hate crimes, pursuing legal resources, and providing victims with legal protection and organizing national education campaigns and programs. For years, we have witnessed the emergence of the new form of anti-Semitism, gradually replacing the age-old threat of anti-Judaism. Criticism of Israel in intellectual circles have evolved into open boycotts, and the BDS movement has become increasingly common. We have also observed radical Islam taking root in the social fabric of the Western world, and their imported Jewish hatred becoming more and more accepted, not regardless of the huge scale of migration. The world seems to be forgetting at an alarming rate. This is a distressing message to the developed world, as nations are compromising their own sovereignty by forgetting. We cannot rely on others to protect us. We must take action ourselves now. So what we can do? We believe a lot. First, we must recognize the exact threat we are facing. All anti-Semitism incidents must be identified, and reality must be presented. The battlefield has now shifted to the social media, where hatred spreads, and we must strive to identify and counter it. But we cannot stop at that point. We must also use the law and counter narratives to reveal the hypocrisy of the developed world. At the same time, we must prepare for the fact that the number of anti-Semitic hate crimes will continue to increase. And the number of victims, sadly, will also increase with this. Currently, there is no European umbrella organization that deals with providing protection, legal assistance, and mental health to such victims. There are organizations that have already been forced to provide such a support to those people, to those victims, some countries, as my organization does as well. But in the EU-wide, representation of this regard is a must. We believe it is of the utmost importance that we act together as a community. This is our new task. We have to do this. This 2 days conference is a perfect opportunity to us to talk about what needs to be done, what we can accomplish together. Please consider my suggestions. At least, but not last, let us not forget that there are more than 100 hostages being held captive by the terrorists. Let us pray for their release as soon as possible, for the speedy recovery of those wounded in the fight against the terrorism, and for the cessation of fighting. Asking God bless to all of us in this endeavor, and may we make past generation who sacrifice so much for our existence, and future generation who rely on the acts we now take proud. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you for your important work. So at the EGA, we're blessed to have a board of Jewish leaders from across Europe. And here we are today in the Netherlands. And I would particularly like to mention two very, very important board members who are with us, Mrs. Ellen van Praag, and of course, Chief Rabbi Jacobs. And Rebbetzin Jacobs is here today as well. You're very, very welcome. I know from having spoken regularly with both of our board members that the situation in Holland has been challenging, to say the very least. And it started almost immediately after October the 7th. And of course, things were already precarious before. I regularly hear from Chief Rabbi Jacobs himself, incidents of anti-Semitism, going about his daily business, walking to shul, going to a supermarket, wherever it is. And I'm sure this is the case for many visibly Jewish people across the Netherlands. So with that in mind, it's my great pleasure to introduce our next guest, a special guest speaker for you now, Dr. Ido Verdonner, who is the National Coordinator for Combating Anti-Semitism at the Ministry of Justice here in the Netherlands. So Dr. Verdonner would be delighted to hear your thoughts on the current situation here in the Netherlands and what can be done about it. Dr. Verdonner, thank you.
I'd like to start off with mentioning I'm not a doctor, at least not yet, but I appreciate the gesture. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable rabbis, Chief Rabbi Jacobs, Rabbi Margolin, other rabbis, Jewish leaders from the Netherlands and from abroad, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues. It's an honor and a privilege to welcome you all to the European Jewish Association's annual policy conference in 2024. As the Netherlands National Coordinator on Combating Anti-Semitism, I'm grateful for the opportunity to stand before you and welcome you to this conference, and in fact, to the Netherlands. The Jewish presence in the Netherlands dates back centuries, marked by periods of flourishing culture, but also tragic suffering. We cannot ignore the historic events that frame our gathering today. October 7th marked the largest killings of Jews in a single day since the end of the Second World War, a pogrom that brought death and destruction. Today, we gather against the backdrop of the largest rise in anti-Semitism in the Netherlands and across Europe. The largest rise since the Shoah, since the murder in the Holocaust. It is essential to recognize that the seeds of this resurgence have been present for much longer. Anti-Semitism has been steadily increasing for over a decade in this part of the world, causing many European Jews to feel that they have no choice but to make Aliyah. While every individual must do what is best for themselves, that step, going to Israel, must never be made out of fear, but only out of choice. We must stand in solidarity with our Jewish citizens and do everything in our power to stop anti-Semitism here. This conference aims to foster dialogue, collaboration, and advance our collective mission to combat anti-Semitism in Europe. The mission for our country and for our office is clear and urgent: to create awareness, to drive policy changes, and to implement effective measures to combat anti-Semitism. Awareness that is often hindered by false accusations of crying wolf, when less and less Jews feel safe when walking these streets with a kippah on their heads. When school kids are more and more afraid to show their heritage to their fellow pupils. Policy changes that reflect the new reality of a steep rise in anti-Semitic incidents, requiring a dedicated answer formulated in the European strategy on combating anti-Semitism and the national strategies to complement actions on the local level. And effective measures that translate the commitment so often uttered in speeches and statements to concrete action that impacts the facts on the ground. Measures like the National Education Plan focused on strengthening Holocaust education in the Netherlands that is currently in development, not only to keep the memory alive of those who have fallen victim to the Nazi ideology, but also to ensure that the younger generations are also taught the lessons about where unbridled anti-Semitism can lead to. Yes, by telling their stories, the stories of the victims, we honor the memory of those whose lives were cut short by the horrendous crimes of the Nazis. But learning about the Holocaust is also a vital calling to ensure that the words "never again" become a lived reality for future generations. Combating anti-Semitism in 2024, we cannot ignore the impact of the digital world. Anti-Semitism spreads faster than ever before via our children's mobile phones, through social media, through school and football practice, with real-life consequences in our schools, on our campuses, and in our workplaces. Changing the law in the Netherlands to explicitly ban the denial of Holocaust in our penal code is a step in the right direction to improve our toolkit in countering anti-Semitism online. But we are nowhere near to where we want to be in stemming the growing tide of online anti-Semitism. And we must realize that the online and the offline world are more and more intertwined. That is why the swift implementation of the DSA, the Digital Services Act, in member states, accompanied with ample resources to implement them at EU and national level, are crucial for change, both on screen and in the real world. For we see every day that what starts online no longer stays online. Since last October, our social landscape has changed significantly. The anti-Semitic genie seems to be out of the bottle. Anti-Semites feel emboldened and free to say whatever they think. And we must answer that threat with every fiber in our body. We must monitor, we must identify, we must prosecute, and we must punish. But we must also educate and remember so that the past remains the past. And not in the least, and perhaps even foremost, we must celebrate. We must celebrate Jewish life, enable it to thrive. We must share it with those who may not be familiar with Jewish history or Jewish culture and customs, by showcasing the richness and diversity of Jewish life, not to earn a place in Jewish society. That place is already there, but to show that Jews are an integral part of the European story. We must remain committed to ensure a future for Jewish community here in the Netherlands and across the whole of Europe. Jewish citizens deserve no less. They deserve safety, equality, and to be treated with the same respect, dignity as any other citizen of the EU. We cannot allow centuries of Jewish life in Europe to come to an end. Celebrating Jewish life is therefore perhaps one of the most effective and true measures in combating today's anti-Semitism. This conference underscores the importance of cooperation and solidarity. The fight against anti-Semitism transcends national borders. It is through sharing our knowledge and experiences that our collective actions will make a difference. This conference, therefore, is a statement, a testament to that spirit of unity. And by coming together here as community leaders, policymakers, and experts from across Europe, we sharpen our thoughts and return home with renewed determination and inspiration. In closing, I again would like to extend my gratitude to the European Jewish Association for their work, for their perseverance, and for organizing this conference, and to all of you for participating in it. Your presence here is a powerful sign of our commitment and our resolve. I hope you enjoy your stay in our country and wish you a fruitful and insightful conference. Thank you very much.
Wonderful speech, Mr. Verdonne. You keep talking like that, I think the doctorate is only a matter of time. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a video for you, which I'd like your attention for. It's from the Foreign Minister of the State of Israel, Mr. Israel Katz. Thank you.
ידידיי, מנהיגי הקהילות היהודיות ברחבי אירופה, אני מברך אתכם על הכינוס המיוחד שלכם, שעוסק באתגרים החדשים שניצבים בפני יהדות אירופה, בעקבות המציאות החדשה שנולדה בעקבות מתקפת הטרור האכזרית של החמאס ב-7 באוקטובר. ראשית כל, חשוב לי לומר לכם שמדינת ישראל, מדינת העם היהודי, תומכת בכם ועומדת מאחוריכם. בכל השיחות והמפגשים שאני מקיים עם מקבלי ההחלטות של מדינותיכם, אני מקפיד להעלות את החשיבות הגדולה של שמירה על ביטחונם של כל הקהילות היהודיות שלכם. מאז טבח 7 באוקטובר, האנטישמיות הרימה את ראשה בכל העולם. כמדינת העם היהודי, אנחנו לא יכולים לקבל מציאות שבה בשנת 2024 יהודים נאלצים להסתיר את זהותם הדתית מחשש שיפגעו. חובתנו להילחם בתופעת האנטישמיות ובאנטישמים עצמם. כולנו מבינים שיש קשר ישיר בין מצבה של מדינת ישראל לבין היחס כלפי הקהילות היהודיות בעולם. לכן תפקידנו לסייע אחד לשני ולחזק אחד את השני. אתם האחים שלנו, המשפחה שלנו. זאת הסיבה שהכנס שלכם בעיתוי הנוכחי הוא מבורך וחשוב. אני מאחל לכם הצלחה רבה ומושיט את ידי להמשך חיזוק השותפות והערבות בינינו. עם ישראל חי.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will move on now to our first panel discussion. It's called Fighting Back, Demanding Action, Not Sympathy, a name that came about by the next moderator, a very esteemed colleague, someone I'm proud to call a colleague. That is Mrs. Ruth Wasserman Lande, who happens to be our senior advisor here at the European Jewish Association, primarily responsible for communities, and also a former Knesset member. And she basically came up with the idea for, or the title for this next panel, because she was clear that what we really wanted to ask from governments was concrete action, that we're done with your sympathy. But I'm not going to preempt anything that my dear colleague is going to say, other than to invite her to the stage now to take forward the first panel of our conference. Ruth Wasserman Lande, please, can you join us? She's on her way. Thank you, Ruth. My pleasure.
Hello, everybody. We have minute-by-minute changes, so my apologies for not coming up really quickly. I'm very, very pleased to call today for several people to join me in this panel. Mr. Max Lowenstein, the Vice President of the Netherlands Israeli organization, ROOF, Organization of All Jewish Communities in the Netherlands. Max, please. I'm also very happy and feel privileged to have met and to call upon Mr. Sidney Bialystok, the President of the Amsterdam Jewish Community. Shalom. Please, sir. We'd love to also have on board Pascal Markovich, attorney at the Paris Bar and EJA Legal Forum member. Sydney. Shalom. Lovely to see you again. Mr. Stefan Hansel, Hamburg Anti-Semitism Commissioner from Germany, please join us on stage. We're also having Ms. Ellie Petit from the K Review in France. And we are missing one more chair. We had this last minute addition. So for the logistics, if you could possibly help us with another chair, that would be wonderful. We have my colleague, very, very pleased to have Ruth Isaac, head of the EU relations in our EJA, also join us. Welcome, Ruth. Yes. Sure. Please. Help yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not here to talk about our challenges and our worries and our concerns. We have a room full of ruach, of spirit, of earnest wishing for the situation to get better, because it's very bad. We're here to talk about how to get better, what should we do, how we should act, and to put this ruach, the spirit, into action. We've passed the time when we can allow ourselves to sit and talk and to describe the difficulty. We're at the point where we need to do. And that's why all of you have been invited today. And I'd like to start with you, Max. As the vice president of an organization basically encompassing all of the Jewish communities in the Netherlands, your connection to the local level, to the local leaderships, the non-Jewish leaderships, the elected leaderships, is relatively very close. How would you propose and how do you move forward with building those relationships in order to secure and to provide solutions to the Jewish community that you head and basically to all the Jewish communities in the organization that actually represents them in the Netherlands?
Thank you very much. Yeah, maybe a short introduction. I'm working for the Jewish community in Eindhoven, Brabant. So on different levels, on local level, regional level, but also as vice president of the Jewish community in the Netherlands. So I think what we do on local level, especially in Brabant, is that we have very good connections with our mayor and also the alderman. And I think that was one of the advices I got from our chief rabbi, Jacobs. He said, invest in your contacts. And that's what we did the past years. And it also benefits us directly after the attack on the 7th of October, where we had direct contact with our security advisor in Eindhoven and also with the mayor. And what we also do is we invite all the leaders in the city or the area I live with Hanukkah, and once or twice a year. And we have contacts with them a couple of years already, and now we know each other. And also, that's why we could stand together with our Islamic colleagues in the area and could see that we stand together. Also, it was a bit difficult for them, but they had no choice, of course. And that was good, I think, to see in the community that we Jews are not alone. For our members, for the students, and all the people, we are part of our community in Brabant.
So basically what you're saying is reach out to the local mayor, build the relationship over time.
Exactly.
Invest in the relationship, basically. Try and leverage that relationship towards improving the ties with other communities, if possible. Some of us know it's not always possible,
No.
but if possible, leverage. And then the return on investment actually comes at more difficult moments, like after October 7th.
Exactly. The mayor directly took action in preventing the synagogue to upgrade the security. He lost a lot of money, which was a problem over the last years. Who's going to pay? Now there was no problem. We have direct contact, so when something happened, we can directly call the police because our rabbi, he's living close to the synagogue. So one call and they come. We have good contacts with police. We invite them. We show them the synagogue and tell them our worries.
So in fact, you're talking about a relationship building with the mayor, the elected mayor,
Exactly.
as well as the chief of police on a regular basis. And we
Yes.
will have, of course,
Yes.
panels dealing with security, so we won't go into too
Please.
much detail. Thank you so much. That's very
Welcome.
helpful. Thank you. Mr. Bialystok, president of the Amsterdam Jewish community. So we spoke a lot about, let's say, taking a variety of Jewish communities, and it's always a big challenge. We know that if we have 2 Jews in a room, we always have at least 5 opinions. So you have a community of approximately 20-odd thousand people in the Netherlands, is that correct? And they are not all of the same type, field, kind of affiliation and so on. And yet you speak about a tool with which to go to the elected government and to the elected, whether it's local or national. Can you elaborate a little bit about that? How do you represent your community? How do you lobby for it? How do you build that relationship with the elected government, given the differences within the community that many of us experience as well?
Well, EGA, thank you very much for this wonderful event. I think it's very good to have Jewish people from abroad and from the Netherlands united here to share all these thoughts together. Well, the most important thing is that because of we have many organizations in the Netherlands for Jewish affairs, it's very important to unite the organizations and to send one message to the people that you want to influence. For example, if you want to have discussion with the mayor or with the vice president or the prime minister, if you want to talk with 10 organizations and everybody sends his own message and want to sit on the front row just to be important, that doesn't work. So I think it's very, very important to speak in one-liners, to have a shared message to send, so that also they can work on that. Because if they hear 10 different messages, it's for them very easy just to sit back and see that we are not united and wait till there is one message that is. So I think in Holland we are already on that level, that we have a CGO who is also a sponsor of this event. It's a Central Jewish organization where the Portuguese synagogue, our Jewish community, and also the liberal Jewish community are connected, and they represent all the communities to the government. And that's, I think, a very important tool. And also on local levels, I think this should be improved, but that will work and help us to reach our goals.
You mean improved by unifying the message on the local level between different groups in the Jewish community?
Exactly, unifying. My key word is unity by diversity. So I think, of course, we should respect all the differences that we have, but we should be united. And that's why I think this event is such a good example, because this is an example of unity that will bring us forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bialystok. I want to perhaps emphasize that we tend to say this word unity, throw it out into the air and leave it. And I would dare argue and join you in saying that we have no privilege to do that anymore. Much like the authorities have no privilege to sit back and just talk about what needs to be done, that it's time to actually do. Likewise, we have no privilege to not unite vis-a-vis the authorities. We have absolutely no ability and no time to do that, either in Israel or in the Jewish diaspora. So thank you so much for this very important message.
May I give maybe also one good example, also what works for the Jewish community very, very good.
Mr. Bialystok, but you are stealing my second question.
Oh,
so
sorry.
we shall return to you, I promise.
Okay.
But if you allow me, I'm going to jump right at Pascal, please. If you can share with us, firstly, we had a very operative, practical forum of Jewish leaders who are in the legislative realm, lawyers, on May 22nd in Brussels. The point was to bring something operative to the table so the Jewish communities can take action in the legislative sense. Could you share with us, please, what the EJA came up with practically Jewish lawyers from very many countries throughout the world, particularly from Europe?
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. I think the title of this panel is to be tachlis, and how to be tachlis. This is the action. We have the opportunity in France to have very good laws against anti-Semitic actions or even boycotts, so anti-Zionism actions. I think it's time to lobby in all the European countries and by a directive applicable to all countries in order to enforce anti-Semitic laws linked to anti-Zionism. That's why we can, in this way, apply the definition of Iowa, for example. Also, something is very important is the traceability of funds which are given to different organizations, mostly pro-Palestinian organizations. We are paying a lot of taxes. Some of the taxes are going to organizations, but we don't, when I say we, it's the governments or the EU Parliament. They can't control to whom these funds are given. It's incredible. We must stop to give some money to organizations who are financing arms, bombs in order to kill, or for example, also school books with hate, and after bombing and assassinating Jews and also Israelis. It's impossible. So we, I think, must act in order to convince by putting some new laws to enforce and be more definitive in sentencing boycotters, but also anti-Semitism when it's linked to anti-Zionism.
So I'll be very tough with you. I promised all of them to be very tough, so I'm making true on my promise. How do you do that? How do you lobby to make legislation come true? How do you make sure that the law enforcement actually can get to the people at the right time?
We must be behind the legislators, so all MPs, governors and governments from different countries in order to convince them that it's impossible to stay like we are now, and we must change laws. For example, we have very good laws in France, which can be translated to other countries or to the EU level. And by a directive, in 5 years, it must be applicable in all countries.
So you're talking about also relationship building over time and the lobbying act to make change with the legislation. So relationship building comes back all the time on the legislative level, on the local level, the mayors, the chiefs of police, and we have the unity issue, which is always within and amidst all of those operative suggestions.
If I may, when the law is inside the criminal code in different countries, we must be behind our prosecutors to convince them to be more powerful and to sue people.
To be tough.
Yes.
Not only to convince them, but our lawyers, our people can also sue and actually promote certain cases and initiate them and have perhaps other people lead them as well.
That's what.
Thank you so much for your words. I appreciate them very much. Thank you. Mr. Hansel, thank you so much for joining us. We have spoken a little bit about the commissioners who combat anti-Semitism in various states, in various countries throughout the continent. Some of them are helpful, some of them are less helpful, and some of them feel perhaps they don't have enough tools. We've spoken of your role as the Commissioner of Combating Anti-Semitism in Hamburg on the national level, but also on the local level. Please tell us your best practice, how you feel it can and does work, what maybe can work a little bit better and can be emulated by other communities, Jewish communities, throughout the continent.
Thank you very much. So first of all, maybe to give an overview, Germany has a structure that's called National Strategy on Combating Anti-Semitism, and each state of our 16 states has their own commissioner. If we're talking about implementation of this kind of model, I would strongly advocate for the idea that we as a Jewish community and as Jewish communities decide actively who's representing us in these positions, because many times I feel that politicians make decisions and decide who is going to be a commissioner to combat anti-Semitism. And it's on us as a Jewish community to stand up and to say and to propose actively people in these positions so they understand what is Jewish reality today and how Jewish life is being threatened. That's the first thing I would recommend. The other is obviously, my colleague just said, IRA is the way to go if we talk about legislation, because otherwise we talk from case to case, from one attack to another, and people pretend to be helpless. We are not helpless. If we implement IRA, I can tell you a very practical example. The biggest sports club in my city, Hamburg, has implemented IRA, this is a soccer club in the first league, into their legal system. What does this mean? It means if one of the fans is posting something hateful online, they can call him into their own system and sanction this person. This is before we take them to the court, but it's very effective if we're talking about spreading hate online. So I think this is definitely the way to go, and I do understand universities and other places, they're hesitant to implement because they don't want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Israel-related anti-Semitism. This is what we're talking about. They all want to force their Jewish life and light Chanukiot and come to our events. Wonderful, and take pictures. But that's definitely not enough. What we need is, we need tools, and I make it very, very clear. I talk to university presidents, and they all hesitant about IRA. It's an intellectual discussion. I said, your people on the ground need clarity. Your janitor, your facility manager needs to understand if he needs to remove this slogan and these posters within 10 minutes or if he can wait for the next week. And that's very important. This is IRA. This is the breakdown of IRA. A janitor understands that this saying from the river to the sea and all these other nonsense has to be removed, at least in Germany, because this slogan is being banned and sanctioned. So I think we do have a few tools, but I would strongly advocate that we as Jewish communities, if there's a strategy implemented, national or state strategy, get involved, make your voice being heard, and don't allow to take this position by people who otherwise would represent an African country as an honorary representative.
So what you're saying is don't make do with legislation. Make sure that there is a law enforcement, which is far harder a thing to get, let's say, even local leaders or university deans or chiefs of police is the obvious route, but really leaders of different communities take action and really explain to their workforce, how do you do it? How do you convince them? Do you go one by one? Do you, how is it done? I'm going to make it a little bit tougher on you because it's a tough job to have that law enforcement attitude. And again, as you yourself say, they're a little bit reluctant sometimes to take it to another level. So say we've implemented and we've put IRA, okay, which is not the case, by the way, in all the places. We need to do that, but that's just the first step. What about how do you get about convincing the deans, convincing the government officials, convincing the locals, apart from, of course, building relationships over time?
So I think, first of all, we need to acknowledge that IRA only makes sense if it's legally binding, and right now, in most places, it's not legally binding. So cities can decide if they adopt it, it gives orientation. We need it in the law. But this is indeed a grassroots approach. I will talk to people and tell them, your people are struggling. You have these protests on your university campus. Let's talk about universities. And many times you don't know what and how to put this into perspective. Is this anti-Semitic? Is this a criticism of Israel? All of this. And this usually gets them because they also want clarity. They're very clear if someone gets attacked, but we talk about physically attacked, but we talk about everything before. I want the staff, I want everybody who works there to understand, okay, this is a criticism of Israel. I would not give them suggestions on how to criticize Israel, obviously not, but I want them to understand that this is not okay. You make it a topic in the discussion that people cannot avoid. And this is a real grassroots approach. Another one in sports, I went to the Ministry of Sports, so I talked to the local sports association, and they do programs now to combat anti-Semitism. First of all, to understand that you don't need a Jew to be harmed in your sports club, because anti-Semitism is much broader. And they give the people tools. In the end, it's, you know, on the local organization and sports clubs to decide if they want to implement it. But once they implement it, there's a discussion. You know, they need to put it into their membership discussion and so on and so forth. So you have a discussion about this, and the outcome usually is IRA. And I think that's very important. It is a grassroots approach. It's very tiring sometimes, and you know, there's not always people who support you and applaud you, but in the end, this is the way to go. And we need a lot of non-Jewish institutions to get involved and to help us with this, because we're simply not enough people.
Which is a beautiful thing that we're cooperating today with our Christian friends of Israel and any other community that the leaders of the communities can reach out to and cooperate with is, of course, an added value. Thank you so much. And I'd just like to say that you're of a unique kind because you're both Jewish and a commissioner, which is an unusual issue amidst the commissioners who combat anti-Semitism. And perhaps that gives a little bit of an added value in terms of understanding the intricacies and the complexities. Thank you so much. Shalom.
Shalom.
We would love to hear about what is being best done in France on the national level and on the local level in terms of communities. Of course, we have representatives here of Jewish communities from France, and of course, our head president of the Consistoire de Paris, Joël Mergui. We'd love to hear from your experience, the best practice you feel that is applied and should be better applied in France.
Okay. Hi, my name is Elie Petit, and I'm a journalist. I work for a review that's called K. It's not the review that's mentioned here. It's called K, Jews, Europe, 21st Century. This project is here for 3 years, and I will talk about what we did about mediatization of our own.
Please.
First, I'm a journalist, so I look at facts, and I try to make sense out of them. In 1880, Jews were 90% of the Jews on the planet were living in Europe. After the Holocaust, only 35% were living in Europe, and today 9%, even less after the start of the Russian war on Ukraine. Also, we are here in a really comfortable place, but a lot of us would fear participating in a seminar maybe in the city center of almost any capital city. This is where we are. We are a few, and we fear being at the center. And this is why with this project, the K Review, that I invite you to visit and to talk to me today about, we try to build a place of our own for 3 years now, every week, to document and analyze the situation of Jews in Europe, but also to position ourselves in the Jewish world, to say what is our voice, to define it, to find the fine-tuning of what is Zionism as a concept, as a reality, to redefine it for ourselves, and to define our place in the Jewish world with Israel and with the American Jewish community.
So more of a think tank, you would say?
It's an alliance of journalists, of writers, of academics that don't want to be boycotted, that want to stand together and want to think together. After October 7th, we have been all emotionally impacted, but in this review, we try also never to stop thinking.
Which is a very interesting thing. I can pull you a little bit to give a practical suggestion and advice to other Jewish communities. Would you recommend that they gather their journalists, their academics, to provide a bigger impact on the community, or perhaps friends of the community who are not Jewish? You would feel that what you are doing in your organization can be emulated in other communities?
So I think it's really logical. It seems logical to be all together here today, but it also say about what we have to do and at which level. The national level, the local level are accurate, but the European level is also very accurate. A lot of things that we attend today, that we see today, even if we don't see the connection between political parties, they sometimes end up saying the same. And the reality of the Jewish community look also like the same. So yes, of course, try to gather journalists, try to gather the academics, but also come to us as a review to tell us about your situation and make us mediatize it. The review has two goals sometimes. One is to tell the reality in long reads of the situation in this university or this country. But also a lot of people use the review because it's an academic review, it's not opinion review, to send articles that are factually correct, long reads, to their friends, to make people less alone and to be better understood.
So it's a tool for the Jewish community at the end of the day.
Yes, but I think it's a good tool for the non-Jewish community as well, because a lot of people that read us are non-Jewish. And in this way of expressing ourselves with facts, they can better understand us. At least we try.
Thank you very much for your efforts and thank you for explaining that. Ruth, you have been with the EJA, the European Jewish Organization, for a long time. And you've, of course, been following the operative steps that the organization has adopted in this regard to combat anti-Semitism and to really pull up our sleeves and to take real action. Please share with us several of the operative points that the organization is following.
Thank you, Ruth. Within EJA, basically, we have, the work that is done in the Jewish communities. My work is primarily and exclusively. So my work is exclusively working on the political arena. In effect, I'm a lobbyist. I'm called a lobbyist. We have what we call the 10 Commandments, which is 10 different points that we present to every head of state, every political party, heads of states, heads of government, police commissioners, and so forth. And those 10 are, some of those things were mentioned, and some countries do better than others, because I think sometimes we tend to generalize, but the situation in Eastern Europe is not the same as in Western Europe. It's a very different reality. One of the co-panelists here, they mentioned that maybe we will not be as safe in any other capital of Europe, but that's not true. That's definitely true in Western European capitals, but not necessarily in Eastern European countries. That's not what we hear from the Jewish communities. I think we have Jewish leaders from Hungary, from Poland, from Romania. They are not saying that they fear for their safety there. That's not the concerns they have. They have other concerns, but that's not one.
Well, there is a movement already from our Polish colleagues that anti-Semitism has been on the rise, as opposed to the last conference that we've attended. So perhaps it's on the rise everywhere, and they will, unfortunately, get to the point where there will be a need for all of those points at some point for all community. Hopefully not.
I hope not. But obviously, what I meant was that you have a different reality. It's not everywhere the same.
Absolutely.
So, but politically, because we deal with political issues, the issue of under-reporting of anti-Semitic incidents is the same throughout Europe. And that's not us saying that. That's the European Union itself, the FRA, said that they feel that this is what they have documented, that up to 70% of anti-Semitic incidents are not reported. Basically, 70.
70,
yes, and that's true, because including our chairman and anyone else that I know, they do not want to take the 1 or 2 hours to go to the police station and then report and fill in forms, and that in the other day not anything will happen, unless it's a very serious incident that involves violence. A lot of the times people feel either they don't want to because of it just takes too long, or otherwise they feel discouraged because they don't feel that any action will come out of that. So this is what officially, as I said, not us as an organization, but what the European Union has, that's the number that they came up with. So this is one of the latest initiatives we had, was to help with the underreporting, because in order to address the issue, in order for the politicians to understand the issue, in order for allocation of funds to be there, you have to have the proper numbers. Yes, no, I was going to say, if I'm not mistaken, no, I do remember very correctly that the Metropolitan Police, the UK they said that anti-Semitic incidents went up by 1,500%, which is huge. Extra. And then I remember we're in a meeting in the European Commission, and they said, well, we should not, because we use that number of over 1,000% of rise, and they felt, where do you get these numbers? They felt that maybe we were a little bit overestimating things. But it was we only go by what, as I said, the police or commissioners, Europol.
So Ruth, okay, so you are saying very clearly that there's definitely an underreporting of anti-Semitic crime. Whether it's this statistic or that statistic, it's a high statistic. There is a fear, there is a kind of attitude of not reporting and so on. What is the mechanism that different communities can use? Is it legislative in essence? Must it be legislated by lobbyists or by MPs or whatever it is? Or is there a different mechanism which Jewish people that feel they had undergone some kind of an attack, whether physical or other, can report to an organization and so on? And after you, Ruth, please, Pascal, if you can elaborate on that from your point of view as a lawyer and from the forum's point of view.
So
but Ruth
basically, first of all, we as an organization, we have asked all the ministries of ministries of interior, ministries of justice to create online, the possibility of reporting online, unless something is obviously violent to the extent that you need to go to a police station and report it in person. There is incidents that you can report online. There are very few countries. One of them is Belgium, by the way. Belgium, you can online. Belgium, there is a pre-registration almost, and then you have to physically go in. So this is something that we have taken upon, and we're following up with every single Ministry of Interior and Justice.
which is amazing because we as an organization actually are in touch with the authorities and trying to make sure that apart from Belgium and perhaps others that we'll hear soon, there is an actual mechanism of online reporting so that this is in fact documented.
But then the second part, other than what the police can do for us, is basically the communities itself have to be encouraged to report, because many times I understand that if you don't feel anything will come out of it, you feel, what's the point? But it's very important that you do take the time.
So leaders of the communities actually need to encourage and to make members of the community feel comfortable in going and doing this online reporting, not to mention even going to police stations, which people feel perhaps a little bit less comfortable in doing. Thank you
And,
so much.
I was going to say, sorry, one of the many other initiatives that we have, one very important one, it has to do, it was mentioned obviously before, about the issue of security. We have raised it all the way to the leadership of the European Council and European Commission. The fact that some Jewish communities, again, depending on which country, they have to provide their own security, or again, I can think of Belgium. We had funding from the government, or there was soldiers, unfortunately, outside of Jewish institutions. And then they felt that the threat was lower, so they took it away, and then there was lobbying going on for it to come back.
Okay, we're going to have two whole panels on security, so I'm going to stop you right there, but it's so important. Thank you so much. And Pascal, could you please elaborate on a mechanism of reporting given the problem of underreporting of anti-Semitic crimes, please?
Yes, we are doing also in France the online possibility of complaining, not only reporting, but complaining. And after, so it's going on in France since 2 or 3 months, I think. So it is a possibility if the person is afraid to go to the police station, he can make it from his home online, and after going to the police station with a rendezvous.
Do members of the Jewish communities know of this possibility?
Yes or not. We have to communicate about this, but also we can report on security organizations like you will see today one of our representatives of the SPCJ, which is the French Community Security Office. And this office, this organization is closely in contact with the Ministry of Interior. So they work a lot together in order to have very good statistics on what's going on about anti-Semitic aggressions.
So basically what you're saying is that first there's an issue of underreporting. We need a mechanism. A mechanism is in place in Belgium, in France. We need also Jewish leaders to encourage members of the community to actually know that they can do this and to encourage them to do it, in fact. But also we need to make sure that there is a follow-up on the countries where there isn't a real mechanism of taking care of this issue of underreporting.
Yes, but also community leaders can complain also. My
On
friend
behalf
Albert
of the
Erhard from
individuals.
the community of Créteil, a Jewish community, he knows it. We have a lot of community leaders, and sometimes they only talk about this, but they don't want to go in court. They must go in court also, if it's possible.
So I think that it was mentioned that there are, actually you even mentioned that there are people who initiate cases, and this is the lawyers of each community that actually take upon themselves certain cases to keep this in terms of the public knowledge and making people in the community also understand that there is something that can be done. So thank you both for elaborating on that. Yes, you may, of course.
May I add a
I
small,
love it that it's not according to the, just brings a little bit of action
a small
into the
thing
panel.
on that? Because what is also very helpful in the Netherlands on this subject is that we have a special Jewish police team, which is a part of the Dutch police, where Jewish people feel, of course, more safe to report. They also have a direct line to the mayor of Amsterdam, of course, and to the Netherlands. So that is very helpful to organize this issue. So it's kind of I don't know how many people are involved in that, but it's a regular part of the Dutch police.
That's amazing, and it's incorporated into the Jewish communities, and they know
Exactly.
of this.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's very well. That's a little bit of a light, a silver lining, isn't it? So we're not all. It's not all bad. We're actually getting a little bit together to do things. So thank you for that. I want to ask you, please. You spoke of the very important process of relationship building, and of course, one cannot emphasize it enough. When you know someone, then it's different. You pick up the phone, you get them to do things, you get them to understand, to have empathy. What do you think about creating a network of the Jewish leaders in the different communities together, each one, like with a partner, either the mayor and or the chief of police, and or a different influencer in that community that may have an impact on society, have kind of a sort of ongoing relationship monitoring kind of thing, but not only one-on-one, as a network, a European Jewish network.
Yeah, I think that would very helpful, very good, because I think we are not so with so many people, and it's good to learn from each other. How can we do it? How can we influence our mayors? How can we talk to the police? What's important? Which examples do we have? So I think that can be very important, and also to learn from each other. That's important.
So you're saying the actual mutual learning between the Jewish leaders, that's an amazing thing, which this is one of the objectives that we have today. Yeah. But also the fact that this mayor will meet the other mayor, and there is a kind of an attempt to create an atmosphere where what do you do? But what do you do? Where is your best practice? Are you doing this better? To create an action-oriented atmosphere for those impacting people, to create an even more impactful action for the Jewish peoplehood. That may be something that you feel would be helpful and practical.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful, also practical possible, because what you see now is that the Jewish communities have one-on-one contact with the mayor, but also all these mayors, they are united in the Federation of the Dutch communities in the Netherlands, the communities in the Netherlands. It would be helpful if you could interact with them and tell them, okay, how is it going? What are the different places doing? And that these mayors learn from each other. Oh, they are doing this and that, and why don't we do that? And it's also not all Jewish communities are as strong as others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And they are
you're from one, you are the leader of one Jewish community, very
Exactly.
different from Amsterdam. And
Exactly.
here we have the leader of the Jewish community in Amsterdam. So may I ask you, Mr. Bialystok, is that something practical that you could foresee, creating such a network of, let's say, on the national level, of leaders of different Jewish communities, together with their mayors and chiefs of police and perhaps other impact influencers, or are there difficulties in creating something like that? Because you mentioned unity, so that's why I'm asking.
Yes, exactly. I think it is very helpful to organize that, and at the moment, I think it can be arranged better than it's arranged now. So
Okay, so that brings me to the perfect next issue. You mentioned that you have a good working model in the Netherlands in terms of how the community can be vis-a-vis the government, vis-a-vis the authorities. How can it leverage its power from different mechanisms? Can you describe that, please? We want to take from that and learn for other communities.
yes, I think on a national level in the Netherlands, it's very well organized and it works effectively. I think also on a local level, we can learn from that, and I think we should also share with our other communities, Rotterdam, Eindhoven, Zwolle, wherever, to share best practices.
What works well in the national level?
Well, I think it's we have different Jewish societies, as you mentioned already. If you have two Jews living somewhere, we need at least 3 synagogues. So on this subject, I
if
think
you're optimistic. If you're optimistic.
yes, because we need at least 1 synagogue where we don't go to. But no, I think on the national level, with all the differences, we are able to create one agenda and yes, headlines to share with the prime minister, which works because then you can be effective. I also think that we have like on a legal level, we have a group of Jewish lawyers who are on each subject able to start lawsuits on social media effects and everything. So that is also, I think, very effective in the Netherlands, which works. It can be, of course, better organized, but I'm very happy to see that it works and to see also the enthusiasm from the people that work on that subject. So that's very effective.
So Sydney, you're basically saying, let's improve the model on the local level with all of the leaders of the Jewish community. So perhaps we will think about creating a kind of a network that we mentioned in each country separately and perhaps on the European level aspect. Thank you so much. You know, Pascal, we have unique boycotting legislation in France. Please, can you share it with us and explain if and how it can be also used as a platform in other countries / Jewish communities?
Yes, it's very unique because the French law is very tough when someone is discriminated because this person belong or not belong to a nation. And with this specific term of nation, we sued a lot of boycott activists because they were against people who belong to the Israeli nation, or producers of, for example, apples or everything coming from Israel. So we have managed to sentence them in a higher level to the Supreme Court. And one of them was an Islamist, and he went to jail, which is it's not very common, but he went to jail because he was convinced of making a boycott action in a supermarket against boycott against Israeli foods. So I think this definition, which is very long, I can say it to you, but it's very long. In English, it says the definition is whether you belong or not belong to a nation, to a race, to an ethnic, or to another group. And if you are making a provocation against these people, you can be sentenced to jail and also to pay a fine.
And this is a legislation which is unique, you say, worldwide to France.
Yes.
Okay, so if there are lobbyists here or leaders of communities that wish to make a step to make, let's say, the life of the Jewish communities easier in different countries, that would be a model of legislation to consider, given the illegality of boycotting, let's say, Israeli or other products.
Yes, and you know what is funny? I went in the EU Parliament a few years ago, and someone coming from a country which doesn't have any diplomatic relations with Israel, Iran, and the diplomat said, you know, I know that we are not sharing the same things about Israel and everything, but against discrimination, we are together, because we don't want our products or our people to be discriminated in your country. So we can work together because in elaborating new laws against discrimination.
Which country is that?
Iran.
Iran?
Yes.
Goodness gracious me. I must have misheard that part of the sentence. Okay.
Because this law is not an anti-Israeli products law.
No, of course not. It's a general. Yes, it's a generic law. Yes.
So I think we can work in two ways,
Which is
two levels.
probably the only legal mechanism for a democracy, because otherwise it would not be accepted.
Of course.
Okay, let's make a stop with the legal aspect for one moment and go, please, if possible, jump just one seat to France again, but on a different level. We have a huge issue, which is basically the issue all over Europe, of a very, very big jump in the strength of the left. And the young people are infatuated with this. In France is one example, but of course it's not the only one. And oftentimes people say that the extremists in our world, you mentioned just one country a second ago, I won't mention its name again, but you know, they use this platform, and many young people fall into a trap, not because of social values, but because of some kind of other ideas that are being implanted. How do you deal with it? How can other Jewish communities deal with it? Because all of us deal with it.
Okay. So right now we try, for example, at the review to understand what's happening for the European elections. In your country, is the conflict against Israel and Hamas the first subject on the news? I don't know. In France, yes. A party that is doing that in the polls, 5%, managed to put this in the news. What is the reality? Everybody is talking about that. Everybody is having an opinion. All the politicians, they have to take a stance. Some take disgusting stance, some okay stance, some really good stance. But there are 5%. Who are the others? In French politics right now, the far-right political party is 35% for the European election. Another far-right party is 5%. And with this new 5%, of course, 45% maybe would vote for pro-Putin party or party that have a problem with anti-Semitism or have an interest in anti-Semitism. Of course, the youth is more concerned by this trend. Among this trend, this is an important party, the far left party.
The youth is more concerned with
Supporting the parties that carries anti-Semitism, let's say. But if you look at this on TikTok, because of AJ Plus or because of many different platforms, yes, there is a lot of anti-Semitic propaganda and anti-Israel propaganda. But we have to be careful on the two fronts. Because on the two fronts, for example, the politician that is on the far right, that is doing 35%, is, I think, #1 politician on TikTok. He's not going to run right now for the presidential election. The people that are watching him are not voters yet, but he's gaining power for the next round. So we have to be really careful on what's happening for the platform for people that are less than 18.
I'm going to be tough with you.
Yeah.
What do you mean by being a little bit more tough? Give us tools.
Okay. It means addressing the reality of anti-Semitism. I think France does it. I think all the communities that we do it. So we reach a limit. We denounce all the time. We do press release. The communities do press release. They try to meet ministers. Nobody in this room is inactive. We can't really be tougher. What we can do is, and I repeat myself, thinks that the European level is the accurate level. And what I propose, listening to you about all this question of comparative law, is that at the review, we try to have a repertory of the different laws. Sometimes it's too broad. Sometimes we need to say, what do France or Hungary or Italy or Romania does about reporting, for example. So the review can be the internal resource, but also the external resource. Because me, as a Jewish person, I'm interested in knowing that. But I need to make the lawmakers have this resource being available. Sometimes we are too afraid to have internal resources being available outside. But the lawmakers, they need to know that in France it's possible. France is not a dictatorship. You can report something online. It's not forbidden. In other countries, you would do this and you would do that. So I would encourage you to support the places that do this internal and exterior resources, but also in your community to have someone that would be a reference for comparative Jewish community policy. Someone that is young, maybe, a young lawyer.
That knows what is happening in other countries, in other communities, to compare
step by step here,
and to have best practices, which is one of the things that we basically also want to allow here for people to hear and to learn and to even coordinate and cooperate on certain levels to really get the best possibilities. You said that sometimes and very often, actually, the minority political power sets the tone in the media, which we know. And this is a very difficult thing to tackle. Perhaps in France, the biggest Jewish community in Europe, it's easier, but for small communities, it's very difficult. And the question is, how and what do we do? Maybe we'll go to Stefan, because there are many communities in Germany that are not necessarily large. A lot of the people are not necessarily identified inside the Jewish community. Many of them are from the former USSR. Some of them even have, they are very quiet about their identity, some from fear, some from different reasons. How does one deal with this?
So yeah, maybe that's very specific about Germany. Germany created a law similar to the law of return in Israel. So Jews from the former Soviet Union could immigrate to Germany. So our reality today is that 95% of our community members and beyond, all the Jews living there are former, we call them post-Soviet Union. Of those 200,000 who came, about 100,000 are members of the community. The others are not affiliated. And the reality is that most of these people struggle with regular immigration problems, lack of language, all of these kind of things. And these people are actually the people that we care about and should care about, because they have no lobby. They are not affiliated, and they are afraid if they send their kids to public school, they do everything possible to avoid the topic of Judaism. Because for them, it's not a question, can I walk with a kippah in the main street? Their issue is if their neighbors know that they are Jewish and they know where their car is located. And after October 7th, this is what's happening. We have cases where kids in public schools, you know, the only 2 Jewish kids in the school that are known, their lockers are painted red. And it's not even acknowledged by the school authorities that this is anti-Semitism because there's no swastika. They have no understanding about this. So getting back to your question, I think, first of all, after October 7th, we need to rethink our relations to the Muslim institutions because they have proven across Europe that they're taking a stance. And Jewish institutions many times are forced to interact with them on the level that is so-called acceptable in the political arena, but I think we need to be more tough on them, even if we have overlapping issues like kosher slaughter and bris and all these kind of questions, but we need to take clearly what is happening, and we need to also single out things. On the other hand, I also feel that especially in Germany, the topic of Jewish reality and Jewish life is totally misinterpreted. Most of the people do not know what Jewish life looks like today. They don't know that most of the people are post-Soviet Union and what are their realities and needs. And if you ask me today, what's the biggest threat of Jewish life in Germany? The answer is assimilation. Because it's not the terror attacks, it's not the violence on the street. This is setting a tone where people do not affiliate, they will not say, we are Jewish, they will not put a mezuzah, they will not send the kids to summer camp, and after 1 or 2 generations, we know exactly what is happening. And this is basically the biggest threat that we're seeing right now. Of course, we talk about terror, we talk about Bataclan, we talk about Nizza, people forget about Madrid, these terror attacks. That's, you know, horrific and terrible, and politicians have to act and lawmakers have to act. But this is the little things. A Jewish family in the suburbs not allowing their kids and grandkids even to know that they are Jewish. And this is our reality in Germany.
Out of fear and out of anti-Semitism and out of ostracization, which is another issue that, of course, all of us are dealing with. The EJA, actually, in terms of Jewish identity. Perhaps, Ruth, you'd like to say something about what the organization is doing vis-a-vis communities throughout Europe in terms of Chagim, in terms of Jewish identity, in terms of aiding, because at the end of the day, we want the communities not to feel as islands, but as part of one peoplehood, that there is an address. It's not easy, but that's the objective.
Actually, yes, and if it's okay, I want to maybe finish a little bit on good news from the Jewish leaders.
We love good news.
From the Jewish leaders conference that we had in Rome, which was 2 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, in March. So one of the directives, if you like, that were given by the Jewish leaders was specifically that we have to work towards reaching out to Christian partners, and specifically not only on the issue of Israel, which we are very privileged to have the Christians for Israel here, an amazing organization active throughout Europe, but specifically to the Catholics on the issue of freedom of religion, basically circumcision and kosher slaughter. And we will have in one of the other panels the Secretary General of the whole of the Catholic Voice for Europe. So the good news is that there are partners. When obviously on the Jewish communities, we're dealing with Jewish communities here, but the politicians and the people we approach, 99.9% almost, they are non-Jewish, and we see a lot of friends, and we are cultivating the relationships with the ambassadors, with the mayors, with members of parliament, ministries of education, ministries of interior, prime ministers, presidents level. So the good news is that we do have friends, and we have reached out to them, and they very practically giving us that friendship. I do want to mention, if it's okay, the fact that you do see a very big difference based on where they are politically, basically right or left or center and so forth, where they stand. It's not a matter of which country they come from, but which political family. Some of countries that do have laws, that do have a wonderful national strategy, wonderful in paper, but in terms of implementation, including to the police, the local police officer that is going to arrest or not arrest someone, it has to do with the political will of the country and the leadership of the
I'm
country.
going to jump in for a second because it actually ties into a lot of things that have been said. Stefan, you spoke about educating people, even the principals of schools, even deans of universities, even influencers that may not know. They may know and not want to know, but many of them actually don't know. And here we have every year a trip to Auschwitz where we invite the leaders of Jewish communities, the European Jewish Association, to invite those kind of influencers, whether they're deans of universities, significant principals of schools, influencers in society, chiefs of police, to feel. And after 2.5 days of such a conference, and Ruth knows very well because she's the main organizer of this amazing, impactful conference, it is very difficult to stay not empathetic and open-minded to that particular cause. And here we have also the group. It's the peoplehood. It's that word peoplehood. And here I come back to you. You spoke of unity. There is a strength to it. There's a ruach. There's a spirit that is bigger than us. I think maybe this is all an indication that we need to, despite the egos, despite the difficulties, despite the disagreements, really try and put them together. And I want to end with one thing. I fell in love with something that you, Sydney, said yesterday. You have an app that at the touch of a button gets you everything you need to know if you want to organize your life as a Jew, as a Jewish leader in the Netherlands. Please tell us about it. And I want all of us to have this app. It's brilliant. It's the end of all the problems, almost, but it's absolutely brilliant. And it's a great technological asset to people who are not billions, but rather fewer in numbers. Please share with us.
Actually, it's not my app, but it's the app for community of different organization. We have installed after the 7th of October the Solidarity app, where all kind of different leaders from all different societies, also individuals, also the Jewish legal organization is a member of. And if you also journalists, we have a Jewish group of journalists who's also available there. And if you have a question on a certain subject, if you post it there, you will get a straight answer, help needed, and that's a network which is very helpful. It works very fast, and it also gives strength to the community, because if you see there what's happening, you get proud of it, and that's also very
Give
important.
us one example. You as the Jewish leader of the Jewish community of Amsterdam, you want to do X, how does this help you?
For example, if there is a nightclub, for example, where there is a lot of anti-Semitism exposed, if you put a message there, suddenly you get an answer from some lawyers who starts a legal act to the government of Amsterdam
Against this nightclub.
exactly, and they have influence. So
And if there is more evidence, maybe Jewish people in the community and friends of the Jewish community will tell you, yes, I also had an experience like that. And this was another anti-Semitic issue. Brilliant. I love it. Thank you. one last thing, because you asked, and then we wrap it up with a beautiful message of unity. Go ahead.
Yeah, a message of unity. We have to tell our story, and we have to mediatize ourselves. We can't regret that in the media it's too biased or not well centered, etc. We have to work on our own narratives and story to know what we think about ourselves, but also to tell the others what we want to tell them. So I ask you, all the members of the community, if you want to come see me, I'm a journalist here. If you want to tell me the story, give me your business card. Also, I can add you to our newsletter to receive our articles. And one last thing,
Beautiful
to
idea.
address the people of the communities, sometimes on the European level, we have to think that we need to address them in their own languages also. Because we are speaking English here, but the review is in French, English, but a vice president of a Spanish community, he said, I'm translating your articles myself. Can you do a Spanish version? So this week we are launching a Spanish version, and he gave support.
Beautiful.
And we are launching because the people, they will not access the English-speaking language.
I think that one last thing that we can say is that we are not 8-9 million Jewish people in Israel. We're 15 to 16 million Jewish people throughout the world. And thank God we have, as you mentioned, Ruth, a cadre of friends who have moral clarity and who believe that the truth is really the truth. As an Israeli, this does not sound good, I must tell you. Okay, so everybody...
We are not going to the shelter.
It's not a siren, which is already a good thing. Thank you so much for everyone for being patient. And one thing I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, one last thing that I can tell you is that it's not a given that any of you are sitting in this room, nor you, and that you are doing what you're doing for the Jewish peoplehood. It's a shlichut. A shlichut as in a mitzvah that we're all doing for the benefit of all of us. And therefore, it is a good opportunity to say thank you to all of you. Toda rabba.
Ruth, thank you so much for your masterful moderation. Thank you to our guests. We're going to move straight on now. This next session, ladies and gentlemen, is a closed session. One of the principal concerns my colleague